Hello and welcome to this World Electrolysis Congress pre-event interview. I'm joined by Peter van Ees, Sector Banker for New Energies and Geo Dynamics at ABN AMRO Bank. Welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Vaughan.
So just to start off, would you be okay to give some background to yourself and some of the work you've done at ABN, particularly in hydrogen?
Yeah, ABN AMRO in Dutch is one of the three Dutch system banks, so one of the three main banks that we have in the Netherlands. We were quite early in the hydrogen game. Started already in 2004, 2005 with the first hydrogen wave that we had back then, with the first hydrogen backed buses driving around in Amsterdam. However, after the delay, let's say, it picked up again in 2018 when the refinery sector in Holland, one of the biggest emitters in the Netherlands, had to come up with a plan to decarbonize, and hydrogen is already used in quite large quantities in that refinery sector and also in the fertilizer sector. And that's when we stepped in as a bank with the first engagements again on hydrogen, both blue and green. And at the same time as well established again or re-established the contact with government to make sure that we got all the stakeholders around at the table. One of the first projects that we did was the big hydrogen import project between Holland and Portugal, with loads of partners in the Rotterdam port and with the Portuguese government and some of the Portuguese partners. That project unfortunately failed because of the off-taker back then stepping out. However, we learned quite a lot from the entire process, since most of Portugal's largest corporations and most of Holland's largest corporations were involved in that exercise.
Okay. And so that's a wide array. You've been through the previous let's say burst of hydrogen market. You said in mid 2000s, working with the refineries in more recent times, and that multinational. What is the sort of main challenges you've seen in this sort of emerging market, across all the work you've done?
Yeah, I mean, when we started in 2018 with that Dutch-Portuguese project, the European Union figured out that they needed a framework for that to allow state support under European regulations, because since hydrogen is already being used and consumed, you had to prove market failure for that, and hence we had to engage on that end to make sure that we could start in a process called IPCEI. And this project, the Dutch-Portuguese import project, was the first project that actually, well, it was the project that kickstarted the entire IPCEI circus that we have been engaged in ever since. So in that sense, we were quite early with that process. What the main learning obviously was back then and still today. We need definitions. We need easy comparables. We need clear market boundary frames to make sure that we all get to a level sort of playing field. And that's still that situation still exists today. That needs that situation needs a solution as well today. Obviously, the off-takers are not there yet, but my take that is simply a question of is the European Union really ready to use their stick to punish companies who will not comply?
Okay, that's quite a range, but also sort of focusing around this similar issues, market build-up and frameworks. So what work are you doing, or what work have you observed in the market that's aimed at sort of mitigating that, creating easier definitions, making it easier for off-takers?
Yeah, well, we've done a lot in Europe, and in the UK as well. I mean, we have created all sorts of frameworks. We have created, at least, even though it's a muddy sort of process, we have created a sort of subsidy scheme. We are seeing the first real investments in larger scale electrolyzers. What we also see is RED III and Delegated Act compliant green power that is being produced for usage in production of green hydrogen. That all had to be developed, and that is now finally there. So in that sense, I'm not that negative. But yeah, we all want to go very fast, and we need to go fast. But yeah, these things indeed, as always, it takes time. And when we will look back in 2050, upon the period 2020, 2030, we will, well, I think we will say yeah, it was a tedious process back then, but yeah, we made it. We did it, but it takes time.
Okay. And sort of, yeah, with that long-term view, what is your observation of the market? Where do you think it will head towards in the coming decades?
Yeah, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly how it will develop, because what we have seen in the past with the development of, for instance, LNG, or with the development of, for instance, rolling out gas infrastructure networks, a lot will happen. Things will happen things will happen that will be very difficult to predict. But since a couple of first sort of steps have been taken, other steps will be possible, steps that we can't predict today. And I expect the same to happen with hydrogen and with the electrification of the network. One of the things that worries me at this stage, for instance, is how do we protect all the centralized power generation infrastructure now that the geopolitical situation is changing? And one of the elements of the energy transition is, and always has been, decentralization of power generation. And what we've seen, for instance, in the Russia-Ukraine war, is that part of the Ukraine's, let's say, success rate in terms of survival or survivability has been the fact that even though their power system was centralized, they have radically and quite fast moved over to decentralized power systems. And that sort of situations were possible simply by the fact that already had started. That didn't need new developments. We were already on that factor of developing decentralized power generation, and this only accelerates that in a horrible sort of set of circumstances, obviously. But these sort of things, that sort of acceleration, I expect to see as well in other domains. And it could very well be that, I don't know exactly what will trigger it, but that at a moment, some sort of infrastructure is there, and then people will start to think, oh, why don't I sign an offtake contract? Even though other parties who are already looking at this for years and years and years are always pushing back their signing of that offtake contract, because they don't want to, in their hearts, because they want to continue to have the market positions that they have. But at a sudden, a car dealer, a local car dealer, or a beer brewer steps up and says, "Hey, I need these green hydrogen molecules because I want to green my brand." And yeah, if the price is 10 euros or 20 euros per kilo, that doesn't really matter in my pricing model, in my cost model.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you. There's a lot you've said there, but I really appreciate leaning on that knowledge you have. So yeah, thank you, Peter. So for those of you looking to join Peter and other experts at World Electrolysis Congress, yeah, feel free to join us from February 10th to 13th at the Koelnmesse Confex in Cologne. So yeah, feel free to join us and meet Peter in person. Right, thank you.